My wife cheated with her boss for months. My daughters lied to cover for her. But when I caught them with GPS, I canceled the $60K wedding, emptied the accounts, and removed them from my will. Now they're broke, and I feel nothing. I'm 52 years old. I've been working in finance for almost 3 decades. And what happened about a month ago literally destroyed everything I thought was my life. My family. Everything. 30 years of marriage. 2 daughters. I thought I knew better than anyone. And it turns out, it was all a lie. Or at least a big part of it was. I guess I should start from the beginning, so this makes sense. Though, honestly, I'm still trying to process it myself. Elizabeth and I met when we were young. I was like 22 and she was 20. And we got married 2 years after we started dating. It was one of those relationships that just worked, you know? No drama, no major complications. We had Olivia when I was 26. And 2 years later, Hannah came along. We were the perfect family, or so I thought. Elizabeth dedicated herself to the girls, while I built my career, worked like crazy for years to give us a good life. A big house, vacations, college for the girls without student loans, all of that. It wasn't perfect. Of course, we had our arguments like any couple, but I never thought there was something fundamentally broken between us. How naive I was, right? Olivia was always the star student, valedictorian of her class, went to a prestigious university, got an amazing job in marketing. Hannah was more laid back, not as academically focused, but sweet. She was always my baby, the one who would hug me for no reason and send me silly memes in the middle of the day. Both of them lived near us, Olivia with her fiancé of like 3 years, and Hannah in an apartment with 2 friends. We saw the girls often, family dinners on Sundays, that kind of thing. I thought we had something special. A truly close family. Elizabeth went back to work like 5 years ago, when Hannah finished college. She said she felt bored at home, that she needed something for herself, and I completely supported her. She got a job at a public relations firm, nothing too demanding at first, but she liked it. Like 2 years ago, she got promoted and got a new boss, Richard, a divorced guy around 48 years old from what I learned later. Elizabeth mentioned his name often. Like Richard says this, Richard thinks that. But I never gave it any importance because, he was her boss. It was normal for her to talk about him. Looking back, I should have noticed it. That way her eyes lit up when she talked about him. How she started dressing up more for work. But you don't want to see those things when you completely trust someone. Everything exploded like 5 weeks ago. It was a Friday afternoon. I had left work early because I had a headache. Nothing serious, but I preferred to get home and rest. Elizabeth was in the shower, and her phone rang on the kitchen table where I was making myself some tea. I would normally never check her phone, never. But the screen lit up, and I saw the message without meaning to. It was from someone saved as Richard Work, and it said something like, "Can't stop thinking," about last night. "You're incredible." I froze. I read the message like 3 times thinking I had misunderstood, but no, there it was, clear as day. I felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. My hands were shaking when I took the phone and unlocked it with her fingerprint while she slept the night before, something we had done mutually for years because supposedly we had nothing to hide. I opened the messages with Richard and saw months of conversations, not all romantic but flirty enough to know that something was going on. There were photos too, nothing explicit but selfies of the 2 of them together that clearly weren't just work-related. My heart was beating so fast I thought I was going to pass out right there. Elizabeth came out of the shower and saw me with her phone. She went pale immediately, didn't even try to hide it. I said, "Who is Richard and why is he sending you messages like this?" And she started stuttering, saying he was just a friend, that I was misinterpreting, the typical garbage they say when they get caught. I told her I had seen the messages, the photos, everything, and she started crying, saying she was going to tell me, that it didn't mean anything. All the pathetic excuses in the world. I just told her to leave the room because I couldn't even look at her without wanting to scream. That night, Elizabeth told me she had plans with the girls, a girls' dinner they had planned for weeks. Olivia was getting married in like 4 months, and supposedly they were going to talk about wedding details. I was too stunned to say anything. I just nodded. She got dressed and left, and like half an hour later, the girls posted photos on Instagram at a restaurant on the other side of town, like a fancy Italian place they liked. I stayed home feeling like my world was falling apart. I had like 3 glasses of whiskey trying to process what to do. But something didn't add up. There was something about the way Elizabeth had left so quickly, so eager to get out. I took my phone and opened the Find My Phone app. We had shared locations forever for safety. Elizabeth's dot wasn't at the Italian restaurant where they were supposed to be. She was at a different restaurant, an upscale one downtown, like 30 minutes from where the girls supposedly were. My blood ran cold. I checked Olivia and Hannah's locations, and sure enough, they were where they said they'd be, but Elizabeth was somewhere completely different. The girls were lying for her. My own daughters were lying to my face to cover for their mother. I felt a rage I had never experienced in my life. I didn't think twice. I grabbed the car keys and drove like crazy to where Elizabeth was. It took me like 25 minutes to get there. I parked outside the restaurant and saw them through the window. Elizabeth and Richard sitting at a private table in the back, laughing. Her touching his hand on the table, him putting his arm around her shoulders. I felt physically sick. I took out my phone and took like 5 photos, making sure their faces were clear, the time, the place, everything. I went back to the car, my hands still shaking, and opened the family group chat we had with Elizabeth, the girls and me. I pasted the clearest photo of Elizabeth holding Richard's hand on the table and wrote something like, "Interesting girls' dinner," and put the restaurant's address. I didn't even wait to see the responses. I turned off my phone, started the car, and drove straight to my brother Peter's house, who lived like an hour away. Peter opened the door and saw my face and immediately knew something terrible had happened. I told him everything, while drinking the whiskey he offered me, and he just listened without interrupting. When I finished, he told me, "You need a lawyer, you need to protect your finances, and you need to cut them all off." It sounded harsh, but he was right. He let me stay in his guest house, and that night I finally turned on my phone. I had like 47 unread messages. Hannah had sent like 15 messages, all apologizing, saying she was so sorry, that Mom had asked them to lie, that she didn't know it was that serious, to please forgive her. Olivia had only sent 3 messages, basically saying I was overreacting, that Mom deserved to be happy, that these things happen in marriages. Elizabeth had called like 20 times and sent messages begging us to talk, that we could fix this, that it wasn't what it looked like even though there were literally photos of her with another man. I deleted everything without responding to anyone. Monday morning, I went straight to my bank and moved all the money from our joint accounts to a new account only in my name. I talked to HR at my work and changed Elizabeth off all my benefits, health insurance, everything. I hired the most aggressive divorce lawyer I could find, a guy with a reputation for destroying the other party, and gave him all the photos, all the messages, everything. He told me that in this evidence, the divorce would be quick and I would come out very well. Like 3 days later, I finally agreed to see Elizabeth. She came to Peter's house crying, with swollen eyes, saying she made a terrible mistake, that she loved me, that Richard meant nothing. I asked her how long the affair had been going on, and she admitted almost a year. A whole year of lies, of kissing me every morning knowing she was sleeping with someone else. I asked her how many times she had been with him, and she didn't want to say the number, just cried more. I told her I wanted a divorce, that I was keeping the house, that she could keep her car and her personal things but nothing else, and that I was canceling my financial support for Olivia's wedding. That last part made her stop in her tracks. I had promised to pay for Olivia's wedding. We were talking about like $45,000 because my daughter wanted a big, elegant wedding. I told Elizabeth that not a cent of my money was going to that wedding now, that if Olivia wanted to get married, she could pay for it herself or ask her mother and her lover for help. Elizabeth begged me not to punish Olivia for her mistakes, but I told her that Olivia had chosen her side when she decided to lie for her, when she decided to betray me too. 2 days later, I met with Hannah at a coffee shop. She arrived with red eyes. Clearly she had been crying. She apologized like 1,000 times, told me that Mom had told her he was just a friend from work at first, that when she realized it was more serious, she was already too deep in the lies and didn't know how to get out. I told her I understood. She was in a difficult position, but that she had had a whole year to tell me the truth and had chosen not to. She said she was afraid of destroying the family, and I told her that the family was already destroyed. I was just the last one to find out. Hannah asked me if we could maintain some kind of relationship, that she loved me, that she didn't want to lose me. I told her I needed time, a lot of time, to even think about that. She cried and hugged me before leaving, and I'm not going to lie. That was one of the hardest parts of all this because Hannah really seemed remorseful, but the damage was already done. With Olivia, it was completely different. We met at a park near her apartment and she arrived with a defensive attitude from the beginning. She told me I was being dramatic, that Mom had made a mistake but marriages survive infidelities all the time, that I was throwing away 30 years over pride. I told her it wasn't just the infidelity, it was the year of lies. It was that my own daughters lied to me and betrayed me. It was that apparently I was the only idiot in the family who didn't know what was going on. Olivia told me that Mom had been unhappy for years, that I worked all the time and was never emotionally present, basically trying to justify the affair. I told her that if Elizabeth was unhappy, she should have told me we should have gone to therapy, anything but lying and cheating. Olivia shrugged and said that sometimes things happen, that I needed to grow up and forgive. It was at that moment that I realized I didn't know this person in front of me. This wasn't my daughter, or at least not the daughter I thought I had raised. I told her the wedding was canceled, or rather, that my financial support was canceled. Olivia got furious, yelling at me that I had promised, that they had already booked the venue, that her fiancé and she had planned everything around my money. I told her that wasn't my problem, that she had chosen to betray her father for her mother and that actions have consequences. She called me selfish, cruel, told me I was ruining the most important day of her life, and I just got up and left. That night, I made a decision that a lot of people will probably think is extreme. I called my lawyer and told him I wanted to change my will. I removed Elizabeth, obviously, but I also removed Olivia and Hannah as beneficiaries. Everything goes to Peter now, my brother who was always there for me, with instructions to donate a significant portion to charity. I also removed the girls from my life insurance, from everything. If something happens to me, they won't see a penny. The next few days were hell. Hannah called me crying, begging me to reconsider, saying she made a mistake but she loved me, that she would always be my daughter. Olivia sent me an email like 3 pages long, full of accusations, calling me a narcissist, emotionally abusive, saying I was always an absent father, and now I was showing my true colors. She said that Mom deserved someone who valued her, that Richard treated her better in 1 year than I treated her in 30. That hurt more than I want to admit, but it also made me firmer in my decision. Elizabeth tried to reach out several times, but my lawyer handled everything. The divorce process moved quickly because I had solid evidence of adultery, and she had no way to fight it. I offered her a relatively fair settlement, considering the circumstances. She could keep her car, her things, and a modest amount of money. But I kept the house, most of the investments, my retirement accounts, everything. She signed without fighting much. I think she knew there was no point. Like 2 weeks ago, a month after discovering all this, the divorce is basically finalized, just waiting for the final papers. I moved back into the house after Elizabeth took her things. The house feels empty, strange, but also peaceful in a way I hadn't felt in a long time. I haven't talked to any of the girls since those initial meetings. I blocked their numbers, their emails, everything. Peter tells me I need to go to therapy to process all this, and he's probably right, but for now, I'm just focusing on moving forward. I heard through Peter, who keeps in touch with some family members who also know Elizabeth, that Olivia is frantic trying to get money for the wedding. Her fiancé and she are fighting because he assumed my money would be there, and now they have to rethink everything. Part of me feels bad for him. He's a good guy who had nothing to do with this. But it's not my problem. Olivia made her choice when she decided to support her mother instead of doing the right thing. Hannah apparently moved back in with Elizabeth to a smaller apartment because Elizabeth can't afford where she lived before on her salary. I heard that the affair with Richard ended like 2 weeks after everything exploded. I guess he wasn't interested in a serious relationship, just in the thrill of the secret. Elizabeth is devastated from what I've been told. She lost her husband, her house, her financial stability, and probably her relationship with her daughters is damaged too, even though they won't admit it yet. The hardest part of all this, and what keeps me up at night, is that I really thought I knew these people. Elizabeth was my wife for 3 decades. We shared a complete life together. We raised 2 daughters. We built a home, a future. Olivia and Hannah were my babies. The girls I read bedtime stories to, who I took to their first days of school, who I taught to drive. And it turns out none of them were who I thought they were, or maybe I wasn't who I thought I was. I don't know what's worse. People ask me if I regret being so harsh, cutting my daughters out of my life so completely. The truth is, I don't know yet. There are moments when I terribly miss Hannah, those silly messages she used to send me, her laugh. With Olivia, it's more complicated because her betrayal felt more deliberate, more calculated, like she really didn't care about hurting me as long as her life continued the way she wanted. But regret? Not really. They made a choice. I made mine. What I do know is that I can't have people in my life who lied to me and betrayed me so fundamentally, regardless of whether they're my blood. Family should mean something. Loyalty, honesty, basic respect. They destroyed all of that and then expected me to just get over it, to keep paying for their lives while they pursued their own agendas. It doesn't work that way. Or at least it doesn't work that way for me. Sometimes I sit in the empty house and wonder how we got here. At what point did Elizabeth decide I wasn't enough? At what point did the girls decide that protecting their mother was more important than being honest with me? Were there signs I missed for years? Probably yes. There were probably hundreds of little things I ignored or misinterpreted because I wanted to believe we had something special. Peter tells me that eventually the pain will go away, that I'll be able to rebuild my life, maybe meet someone new, although that seems impossible to me now. He tells me I did the right thing by setting boundaries, by not allowing myself to be treated like a fool. I want to believe him. Some days I do. Other days, I just feel tremendously sad about everything I lost, about the family I thought I had that turns out never really existed. The only thing I'm clear about is that I'm not going to be the guy who stays in a dead marriage out of fear of being alone, or who maintains toxic relationships with his adult children just because they share blood. I deserve better than that. Although finding what that better is something I'm still discovering. For now, I'm focusing on myself for the first time in decades, going to the gym, picking up hobbies I had abandoned, spending time with Peter and his kids who are like my nephews. It's a start, I guess. Last week I came across an old photo of the 4 of us, Elizabeth, the girls and me, on a beach vacation like 10 years ago. All of us smiling, hugging each other, looking like the perfect family I thought we were. It hurt to see it. I'm not going to lie, but it also reminded me that that family, if it ever really existed, no longer exists. The person in that photo, that naive husband and father who thought he had it all figured out, that's not me anymore. I don't know exactly who I am now, but I'm learning, one day at a time, and that's all I can do for now.